So we got some things to talk about, though. I actually want to kick it off with the Spartans here, Emmett, because that's really been the main talk here in town, and I'm curious what you've seen here so far. I know you wrote an article talking about Fitzgerald winning the press conference, which we had with Dan Campbell. He won the press conference, and he's still winning here for the Lions. But this seems to be kind of an interesting acquisition for the Spartans. When I initially saw the news, I've been talking with you and Chris Solari and Robert Bondi and several of the folks on the Spartans beat, and the kind of what I was mainly hearing is that if he wasn't let go in the bye week, then they were going to hang on to Smith, because if they couldn't get into the coaching carousel early enough, then sometimes you don't find a dance partner. But what's interesting about that is Penn State decided to go that way, and now they don't have a dance partner when the music stopped, but the Spartans do. And I think maybe Penn State's dance partner was stolen by Crumble Cookies. I'm not sure about that. But what's the thoughts on Fitzgerald and the timing, I guess? Were you surprised by the timing of letting Smith go, and then we'll handle the Fitzgerald part next here?
In a way, I was not surprised by the Smith being let go at the end of the season, as opposed to in the lead up to any game. Just in part, after that bye week passed, this was a football team that, as battered as they were in terms of injury, as battered as they were in terms of being on a 6, 7, 8 game losing streak, this was a team that never gave up. The Spartans did not, despite being on the wrong end of the scoreboard 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row, 7 weeks in a row, they did not go and quit. There was not any opting out, buying out you really saw from this team this year. So it was clear the locker room was united under Coach Jonathan Smith, and Smith was a great leader, great man, great character. But at the end of the day, I almost think was a cultural gap of Big Ten football for Jonathan Smith that you had a team without an identity. And I believe Pat Fitzgerald is the guy who can bring the identity to Michigan State football.
Interesting. So, I could see both sides of this, so I kind of want to talk about that. But so tell me more about kind of the cultural fit. More so he was coming in with more of the West Coast mindset, and now this is Midwest, hard-nosed football, and he didn't necessarily have that piece kind of down because he was used to being more on the West Coast pack whatever number you want to use side of things.
Yeah, personally, I prefer Tupac now with only two teams in it.
I like that.
So right now, in terms of having an identity, Jonathan Smith's teams at Oregon State always tended to have receivers that can get separations, offensive line that can hold up and block well, and they would have a way to win in the trenches. But overall, this Jonathan Smith team could not pave the way in the trenches against Big Ten defenses. I'm not sure if that was just Big Ten or injury or what had really saw the gap between what you saw at Oregon State versus Michigan State. But you didn't see any tangible progress either, which was, I believe, a factor in why he was let go. You didn't have any player really stand out as this player is progressing extremely well. Nick Marsh needed an extra game. Remember, he only played in 11 as a freshman. He needed an extra game to surpass his receiving totals. So you just did not really see much progress or tangible, this team has an identity. For example, this was brought up by, I believe, Matt Sheehan on his podcast about you have two different fourth and short situations during the game against Iowa. A 4th and 2, 12 seconds before halftime, and a 4th and 2 with a minute left into the game. One time you go for it before half, one time you punt it away and trust in your defense. But there was no defense or offense. You really had no identity of trusting your defense or letting your offense ground and pound and gain those yards. So it was just really, you did not have any center point or any real, this is what we're going to do. And when you don't have that alignment, I guess is the way you could say it, which seems to be the phrase of the week, you are not going to see that really come to fruition, I guess is the best way to say it. You don't have anything to really believe in for You don't have that progress to believe in. Was the issue under Jonathan Smith, because you're 2 years in, 24 games in, and you still don't know what this team has as, well, we're going to do this. We're going to rely on this. You can't rely on the offensive line. You can't rely on your skill position players to create separation and just straight out talent, like what you saw with Mel Tucker in the K9 years, for example. And you don't have a defense where you can say, yeah, the defense will win us these games, like you did for, say, 2018, 2019 Michigan State under Mark D'Antonio.
Interesting. Yeah, I see what you're saying, because I feel like we're having kind of a version of that same type of conversation with Campbell, because it always comes down to his decision making, and sometimes they talk about the end of half, end of game decision making. A lot of times it's the aggressiveness, and yep. I think this is the other side of that. I know people are getting a little worn out with, okay, they're going for it on everything, and now it's not working quite as well. The person that really, I think, was one of the first ones to initiate this in the NFL was really more Brandon Staley, and this same kind of thing happened to him. Not that I'm comparing the two at all, but the same kind of thing where he went for it all the time, maybe got overly aggressive, and then kind of lost his identity as part of it. He didn't then know how to differentiate between things and how to have a strategy that made sense. I think Campbell still got that, because he's still stuck with that identity. He's wanted
Correct.
To go with that offense and say, hey, I believe in the offense, and if we lose,
believes in his defense,
exactly,
anything goes wrong, he believes that defense and Calvin Shepard's group can get a stop.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Lee McNeil healthy. Lee McNeil, for example, he's healthy. If you can really get Marcus Davenport producing again, if Aiden Hutchinson doesn't have as much focus on one side because you have a Marcus Davenport and Al-Qadim Muhammad, then you have a much better chance and opportunity against any team, I would say.
I agree, and I like that they've stuck with that strategy, and we'll pick that conversation up after the break here too, because I want to talk about that, but I want to finish up the state conversation, because I do think it's interesting because they definitely went with a culture builder style guy. He's had kind of a mixed bag. He produced pretty well at Northwestern, then had some controversy while he was there, but this seemed to be a move that also, you're talking about kind of motivating the team and having a team culture. I feel like this was a donor base motivating move too, because that's what BAT was supposed to kind of bring to Michigan State, the ability to raise funds and get that part of things cleaned up and have that buoy the rest of the program. I feel like Fitzgerald, for better or worse, not really even comparing him to Smith, I feel like that motivates the base more than Smith. Do you think that factored into the decision as well?
I believe in that 1,000%. That was something I was thinking over today, was just that it was hard to sell hope in going into year 3 of a coach where you saw 5-7 and 4-8 and a team struggling to really have one specific brand, one specific thing to rely on. You don't, like I mentioned earlier, you don't have the tangible progress under Smith, and it's hard to sell the donors and the fan base, and money talks in this world of college football, college sports in general. The money talks and the donors talk, and at the end of the day, the donors are a lot like the fan base, except they just have bigger pockets. And you saw the fan base starting to tune out when you go on Twitter and look at the interactions and all the movements of people who wanted to get rid of Jonathan Smith, and then you see how fired up the fan base is for a coach like Pat Fitzgerald, who goes, and one of the big things against Smith was he doesn't show a ton of emotion. Pat Fitzgerald pumping up the crowd, waving his arms, a lot of people are saying, hey, that's more emotion than we saw for 2 years to the day since Smith got hired.
Exactly. It is kind of the antithesis thing, because I think the agreement amongst pretty much everybody, and we do want to get some folks on the show. We have contact with guys like J.U. Colcrick and Dalton Shetler. I've had them on the show before, and I know they've had direct interactions with Jonathan Smith and have had largely good interactions with him. And I think that's most of the people that have dealt with them have had that. But sometimes you just need the other type of coach. It's the same thing with a primarily this happens in the NFL, but it happens in college too, where you have a guy that's maybe more of a tough-nosed defensive guy, and that's just not working for your current group. So you move to an offensive coach that's maybe a little bit more carefree, maybe a little less aggressive, and then oftentimes after a few years, maybe that's not working out and you switch back. But that they've essentially done that with this program. So it's an interesting change. I think it's going to bring a lot of eyes to the program from both outside and within the program. It's amazing to me that they made this change when they did, and they still got their guy and got a pretty good choice. And Penn State is still out there looking for somebody. That juxtaposition is interesting to me. But the part that was confusing to me about the timing is Fitzgerald really had to get on the phones. I mean, he had to work hard to retain who he could. It seemed like he did pretty well. He even retained Kate Kaufman here locally from East Kentwood, and he has a pretty good list of folks that he was able to retain. So hopefully that means he can bring some people in via the portal for the sake of Michigan State. But I think they've got momentum with this move. It seems like they're looking for this to be the rising tide that kind of lifts all the boats there.
Yeah, I completely agree that he basically got on the phone, and during his introductory press conference, he's like, "Sorry if my voice is raspy. I've basically been on the phone nonstop since getting hired yesterday." And you have to realize, especially with the way college football works now, he had signing day 2 days after he got hired, 1 day after his introductory press conference. National Signing Day is still going on right now. The Spartans, I believe, are expected to still land current commit Jeremiah Favorite on Friday. And then you also have to realize the day after National Signing Day, that period ends. If I'm not mistaken, the transfer portal a 15-day transfer portal window opens for Michigan State football due to a new coach being hired. That is something I confirmed with an MSU spokesperson, was that 5 days after the day of hire is Saturday. So the Spartans could have players hit the portal as early as Saturday due to the existing NCAA rules that went into effect in October, with the transfer portal window opening immediately 5 days within a coach hire.
Which we'll have to see what happens with that part of it. I know there's big names like Marsh wanting to leave.
And Frazier have announced their intentions to. Yes, that is correct.
But yeah, obviously, hopefully on the other side of that, he's able to bring people in that window. But it's interesting stuff. I'm glad you could cover that. That's part of the reason we wanted you on. But we got to do some Lions coverage too. We got to preview the game here a little bit. So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with Emmett Matasovsky of Lions on SI and talk some Lions. Stick with us. You're listening to Shayne Graham's Extra Points on Jethro FM. Happy to come back here with Emmett Matasovsky. Gave us some good stuff about Michigan State. We'll be covering them with him here and some of the other people on the beat as time goes by in the off season as well, because we'll be able to pay better attention to the off season here in the show. And we'll also have Emmett on the other show on Sports Intel to talk some basketball. We won't have more room for it this time, but we'll have him on the other show because we got to talk some Lions here, Emmett. I feel like by your comment talking about kind of McNeil coming back in full force and Davenport coming back, I feel like you have some positivity about this team, and I think that's what we need. They're 7-5. They got a big game today, and basically this is kind of I hate to say it's a make or break game, but really by the odds of it, if they win, they're over a 50% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, they're under 15% chance to make the playoffs. So this is a big game. The Cowboys are pretty hot. They're also in the playoff race. And so I'm curious kind of how you feel about what's going on here.
I think the best way to describe this game is that it is make or break for both teams. I mean, Dallas is 6-5-1, Detroit 7-5. Both teams if they want to remain in the playoff race, they have to find a way to win tonight. And I would say I feel somewhat positive, especially Aleem McNeil being back. You saw great flashes out of him during the game last week against Green Bay, and last year against Dallas, it's worth mentioning, he had 2 sacks in that 47-9 blowout. So you feel good looking at the historic records, but at the same time, this Detroit team is down. This Detroit team's down players, I believe. Alasika's confirmed out for the game. So you are going to be seeing the third different starting guard, most likely, for the Lions in this season alone, which obviously not a success for winning, not a recipe for success for winning football when you're down players.
They've been dealing with the injury bug again this year, and it has. Unfortunately, it was that way last year, and there was a lot of reason to believe it would be different this year. It was different, but not different enough. Unfortunately, they did have some guys that were supposed to be back, but then those guys became guys like Terry Arnold, who he was supposed to be back, and then it isn't really coming back. The Laporta injury is huge. I feel like that's not one that people are talking about as much because we inherently focused on a lot of the defensive stuff. But man, that he was having a great year, and he was really improving as a blocker and doing very well as a receiver, and he was giving another level to that offense. And him going out, I feel like that was one of the single biggest hits. You're also talking about the offensive line. They've not had a lot of continuity there either.
No, not at all. And then you have that glimmer of hope with Frank Ragnow returning, and then Ragnow with, I believe it was a grade 3 hamstring injury, which basically, if I'm not mistaken, is a hamstring off the bone or completely torn. You have that glimmer of hope then for it to get ripped away with something that most of us wouldn't be able to walk off, and Ragnow thought he could play with it. So that's always, that's a hard blow even to the morale when you think you have this great leader coming back to the program, and great leader and great centerpiece who happens to be in the middle of the line, and you don't have that piece anymore. That is definitely a blow to the gut for this team, and you're just down. You're down on all aspects of the game. You have your punt returner, Khalif Raymond, I believe, is out. You have Terrion Arnold out. You have I don't believe Malcolm Rodriguez is back, if I'm not mistaken. Then you've been rotating around defensive linemen. I believe Josh Pascal is still out. Offensive line, you had 3 of your starting 5 on the injury report. One of them confirmed out. 4 of your starting 5 on the injury report. 1 confirmed out, and he was the backup to the starting left guard, Christian Mahogany, who was removed. So you just have injuries galore, and that is just a factor going against the Lions. You're down to tight end, I believe, 4 at this point, with Zylstra, Wright, and Laporta all out. There is a lot that you are not as hopeful about, I think is the best way to phrase it. Amon-Ra St. Brown being out for after 4 snaps last game and then being back this game. Interested to see how Amon-Ra is going to play tonight.
That's a big one. I mean, obviously he's one of their most important offensive players, but then you have Raymond out in addition to that, and then, like we said, Laporta. There's going to be some pressure on some of these other offensive pieces because, how complete is he? He's a gamer. He's going to try to do everything he can, and thankfully he's more of a quickness guy than a speed guy. So hopefully he can make that work and still be a threat over the middle, and then you got Williams over the top. We probably will see more of Tesla for this game, which a lot of people in the area, specifically since he's from here, will be excited about. And he's shown a lot of flashes. I think a lot of people want to see more of Tesla, but I think that's more to do with his understanding of the offense as a whole and what he needs to do on every play, and less about maybe the ability to catch the ball. He needs to be in the right spot, and it's a complicated offense. He's got to figure all that out. So it'll be interesting because both these teams are kind of a little bit slow on the start. The Cowboys have pulled off 2 back-to-back pretty big wins that have put them back into contention here against the Eagles and Chiefs, but they started kind of slow in each game. So I think the start is going to be key for these games. But I know you wrote a good article about kind of who needs to step up. So I wanted to give you a chance to highlight, some of those guys that you view in your mind that they've got to bring it here today.
Yeah, so two players that came to mind right away for me were Owen McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson. You can get that pressure, especially considering it feels like every time the Lions and Cowboys play, Dak Prescott gets a lot of yards through the air, and if you can try to make him uncomfortable, you can hopefully get to that same situation where last year he ended up throwing, I believe, 3 interceptions in the blowout. So you're going to want to try to get that pressure, get him uncomfortable. I also highlighted Tate Ratledge because you do have 3 of the 4 starting linemen who are on the injury report are playing tonight. Ratledge was the only one fully healthy, or at least midseason healthy and good enough to practice. You always have that factor of, yes, they are playing and starting tonight, but it's more likely one of them is going to go down just because they're injured. They're playing injured right now, and you have to have that player able to communicate, and it might have to be the rookie being able to communicate everything out because he's had these consistent reps at this point. Then Jameson Williams was a player I also highlighted because Amon-Ra's status was up in the air, and Williams, if he can have a game that's similar to his 144-yard, 1-touchdown performance last week, you feel a lot better about their odds, about the Lions' odds just in general, because you have a receiver go for 150 and you can get Amon-Ra involved, even if it's in a limited capacity, then you feel better about it. David Montgomery being able to go between the tackles, especially when you have an injured offensive line, you might not be able to have that same push you do. So him being able to turn his legs and fall forward can prove crucial in this game is one of the main things I elected to highlight.
I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of guys, and they're going to be bringing it here this week. The coaching staff clearly had urgency. They know the numbers just like we do, some of the numbers that we've talked about, and they need to turn some momentum around. I really felt like they had a chance to really stack some momentum kind of on top of itself here with the fact that if they could have pulled out that Thanksgiving game after the Ragnow announcement, I felt like that was kind of what they needed to turn the season around. Unfortunately, the reverse happened. They lost the Packers game, and then the Ragnow thing, as you highlighted, got taken away basically 72 hours later. So that is interesting to me because I think a lot of people are thinking, well, what happened there? He's not necessarily ready. Was he trying to get back with the team? Grade 3, how did he not know? But that guy's so tough that I feel like he could have a hamstring off the bone and not know. But hopefully everything's okay there. They've got some key injury issues, and hopefully they can solve some of them. He's probably done, but the guys that are on the team, the Kirby Josephs of the world, Terry Arnold had an injury riddled season. Hopefully they can get those guys back eventually, but they've got to go next man up here, and they're trying to do that. So hopefully they can make it work. But we appreciate you joining the show, and we appreciate you highlighting all this stuff. Make sure to tell the people where they can follow you, not only for the Lions coverage, but for the Spartans coverage too, because we'll be talking about that on both shows here going forward.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. So Spartan Shadows is where my MSU stuff is located, SpartanShadows.com. Usually most articles end up being either me or Ben Shadle, in addition to a couple of our talented writers like Joey Shaver. All of us, we put in the work and get to have some of these awesome experiences. Matt Eichstadt as well. And then Lions on SI. Usually most of my stuff winds up getting reposted. Usually when you look up Lions on SI, all 4 of us here at Lions on SI are extremely talented. Christian Boer, John Macron, and Vito Chirico. All of us, great group that works together, and all of them have really helped me progress as a writer, just as being the newest writer in the group. I just can't thank all of them enough. and I highly recommend checking out any of their work, so any of the stuff on Spartan Shadows as well. And then, and also usually I'm very active on Twitter at E_Matasovsky, MATASOVSKY 57. Those are the main places to really check me out. And I'm excited for the future for Michigan State, and I'm very hopeful that the Lions can find a way to continue in on that playoff race. And it starts tonight with a win against Dallas, hopefully.
Definitely. I like it. Be sure to follow him in all those places. He's producing a lot of good content here, and you'll hear him back on this show and likely Sports Intel. Like I said, he covers basketball too, so we'll be covering a decent amount of MSU basketball, and they've been playing very well on that side of things too, so we'll get his coverage on that. But appreciate you joining the show, Emmett, and we'll talk to you again soon.